Ursula, we can
Yes.
start chatting about travel.
Oh Lord, yes, I have traveled to a couple of places in my life. I've been lucky enough with some artist friends to do a series of sort of adventure travel books. We've gone to some fairly wild places. Wild as in remote and with animals. So we did a week-long photo safari in Botswana, including spending the night in a couple of camping in a couple of game reserves. And
did you guys camp like in tents or like in a hive or
intense?
Okay.
I mean, we had a couple nights in hotels and lodges, which was mostly lodges, and then you go out on day trips for the ones where they don't let you get out of the vehicle, basically. But the ones that allow humans basically to leave the car.
The ones that don't have like lions laying around.
Well, ironically, one of the places we camped was Savuti, which is a park that is home to the only lion prides who have successfully learned to hunt elephants.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, and it's amazing that they've learned to hunt elephants. It should be said, it's possible other lions have figured this out in the past, but they only got the basically good enough night vision cameras to get good footage of it a few years back. Stay where you are, Diane. Don't click anything else.
I'm not touching anything. The system seems to be annoyed with me for some reason.
Oh, no.
I am not touching any damn thing. I'm here. Yay.
And so it was fascinating because these wildlife photographers basically were filming at night and they thought they were going to be capturing hyena-lion interactions. And instead, they discovered that, and this was a really unusual condition. It would have been a very severe drought in Savuti, and a bunch of lions. Basically, there was one watering hole left in the park, and a bunch of lions had congregated on it, and so had the elephants. And the elephants were ignoring the lions because they're elephants. They don't have to worry about lions. It never occurred to them that they would have to worry about lions. And as far as they could tell, there was one female lioness who basically looked at the elephant one day and was like, guys, I got an idea. And it was extraordinary because not only, because the males even joined in the hunt, which is very unusual. And there was like this super pride, basically. So the footage basically, the lioness gives a signal and about 30 lions jump on one elephant. It was a smaller elephant, and the elephant is like, what the hell is going on? Oh my God. This is not how the world works. And proceeds to die of lioning because the elephant is so stunned it doesn't even run away. It's just standing there going, this is not how the world works, and then falls over and is killed. And it's extraordinary footage if you can find the documentary. And this particular lioness was like, oh, we got a good thing going now. We have figured out the secret. We can take elephants. And so they got 2 or 3 more elephants during that drought. And then the last time anyone saw any footage of this particular lioness, she leaped on the head of a bull elephant. And all the other lions basically went, I gotta go over here now. And the elephant, ignoring the lion, walks into the dark, and no one ever sees that lioness again. And that was the end of hunting elephants in Savuti. But it is truly amazing, and we camped there. And the area that we were camping in is basically the lions don't hang out there.
Yeah.
So it was, but the drive-in, our truck broke down, and we lost the trailer that was behind us that had such small conveniences as tents, firewood, food, about half our potable water. And so we're going, okay, what do we do now? Oh God, well, we've got a flat too. What the hell do we do now? And so we're asking the guide and our sort of herder of tourists. So what happens if we can't get this fixed? And he's like, well, you will all get back in the vehicle and I will walk to a tree and I will climb the tree and look for lions. And then I will run to another tree. I will climb that tree. And in this manner, I will go about 5 miles to the ranger station, take it a tow, unless I see lions, in which case the tree. And it's a very low like even top notch. They're like, okay, even the life flights are gonna take hours to get here, so don't step on any mambas or anything, or I forget what exactly the poisonous animals in the area were. And so we go, we camp, our gear finally gets there, we set up our tents, we have a fire, and I'm a bird watcher, so I'm on this trip mostly for birds. I'm everywhere. I'm excited. I'm looking at all these cool birds. There are all these little owls. I'm thrilled by the owls, and that night there are no facilities at all. So if you want to get up to use the bathroom, you thump your tent mate, who is my husband in this case, and because you have to go in pairs because there are leopards. And so and whatever is keeping the lions out is not doing anything to the leopards. And if they see you alone and squatting, they're just going to drop on you, and that's going to be the end of the matter. So our guide is like, yeah, you have to go in pairs. And he was completely beaten down at this point. He's just laying there going, don't get eaten by leopards, kids. We get out there. So in the nights, I have to use the facility several times, being as I am a woman over a certain age and, have a bladder the size of a peach pit. And my husband is very patient about this. And I keep hearing owls, these sort of happy owl calls. And I'm like, this is so amazing. I wish I could see some of them, and they're really close. And it's so or footprints from hyenas who have all just walked through, and my head was here, the tent fabric is here, the hyena was right here apparently. And that's actual distance, we're talking 2 feet away kind of footprint. And I asked the guide about all the cool owl calls, and he was like, those were hyenas. And I'm like, I thought they did the laugh thing. He's like, no, that's a distress call. When they're happy or hunting, they sound like owls. And I'm like, oh, we were standing in the middle of a hyena pack and peeing. Wow, that's great. Damn. Yeah, he was like, yeah, every time you got up, since you had to walk by my tent, I would just think, please don't step on a hyena. And losing tourists is bad for the guides. They have a very strict point system, like a driver's license for their guide license, and if you lose a tourist, you get knocked down a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. My parents have had similarly close experiences with elephants when they've been at lodges and things like that. The one time my one parent got up to I think also to use the bathroom early in the morning, and walked. There's it's kind of like an outhouse, and there were elephants. There's the fence, and again, the elephants were eating the trees that were basically right next to the fence, and you didn't hear them. You didn't hear them at all. And then she went and got my mom and ran and they ran out and they watched, and then 5 minutes later they were gone. They just disappeared and without a trace. You didn't hear them at all.
That's the amazing thing about elephants. They can vanish.
Yes, they're so quiet. You will not hear them.
In the zoo, and seeing them in the wild, you're not surprised by how big they are. I've turned off my video because apparently I'm cutting out so often, so this might keep the audio going. You're not at all surprised by how big they are because you've seen them in zoos. Of course they're big. They're elephants. But they can vanish behind a blade of grass. That's the astonishing thing. You're like, how the hell did that elephant walk behind a tree trunk as thick as my forearm, and now there is no elephant? That is not possible. They're sneaky.
Yes, they're sneaky and they're so quiet. They walk on their tiptoes.
Yeah.
It's really pretty great. So just as a quick rundown, I would love to hear where all y'all have been in the world, and then we can ask some just as a list quickly, and then we can ask some more specific questions about traveling and writing and how the two intersect. Ursula, do you want to start? Because you've
Sure.
told us you've been to Botswana.
Yes, I did a similar sort of travel thing and with other artists to the Himalayas, in Tibet, and specifically we stayed for a week in a place called the Valley of the Cats, that is the highest density of snow leopards on Earth.
Ooh.
And yes, and God, I wish I'd seen a snow leopard. It would have been fabulous. But it turns out every rock in the Valley of Cats looks exactly like a snow leopard.
Mm-hmm.
So like they blend incredibly. It's all like white, sort of decomposing granite with black splotches, and snow leopards are invisible. I have come to a point where I don't even necessarily believe they exist and that they are not a creature invented to bring in tourists. It's amazing. So yes, that was exciting. I honestly I could just do a whole hour on toilets I have known in the world. And then we went out to various other places in Tibet, Mount Kailash. That was one of the more exciting recent ones. Other than that, Iceland, Finland, a couple of European countries of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I have meandered around the U.S. a lot, and Alaska, which is, technically the U.S., but feels like a totally different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's about it. Chunks of China, mostly on the way to Tibet, but enough to. I have been in a car driven in rush hour in Jining, and hell, some terror for it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And Diane, obviously you're living in Ireland, so
Yeah, I've only got 2 continents really under my belt as yet. I know parts of both of them extremely well. Leaving North America aside for the moment, and for those who are interested, I was born on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, in a hospital where the hospital is there no longer, but there's a good German restaurant on that address, I'm told. Outside of that, I've lived in Philadelphia and Los Angeles for prolonged periods. And that said, I don't have a lot more of North America under my belt. More Canada, strangely. Montreal, Toronto, I've spent significant time in those. Vancouver, not as much as I want. Now, Europe's another story. I've been mostly in Ireland for the guts of 30 years, except when I'm not in Ireland, when I might be in France or Switzerland or Germany. As it turns out, it's a bit funny in its way. In the ancient day, one of the things that would have been an interest for me was my Irish heritage, which is from my father's side of the family. But I never really went into my mother's side. And thereby hangs a tale. It gets a bit funny. My grandmother's name was Dunbar. I thought originally this was Scots, and you could be understood for mistaking that. That's when I found out that I was misremembering her last name. It was not Dunbar, it was Dunbaugh. And Dunbaugh turns out to be a very, very worn down version of Durenbacher. That's when I found my German and Swiss side. And suddenly, all the research I'd been doing on Swiss folktales and the unmistakable fondness that I'd had for a long time for being in Germany, especially over by the Rhine, started. I can't say it makes sense. It makes no sense. This is an adoptive connection. But I'm always happiest when I'm near the Rhine. It's a strange thing. So Peter and I spend a lot of time there when we can be there. Our favorite city is Freiburg, down near the corner where Switzerland, France, and Germany bump together. The
Is
direct
near Constance?
No,
What'd you say?
that's a little further over to Germany. Constance
Okay.
is another story because we spent some time the last few years before travel became problematic. In the panhandle of Austria, at the very furthest end of the panhandle in Bregenz. And we really like Bregenz. That is a fabulous place. And that is on the furthest, if I've got my geography correct, the furthest east end of Constance.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful part of the world. Certainly, some of my storytelling is based there. Not so much at the Austrian end, but more in the Swiss area. There's the first book of what will theoretically be 3 written, based in pre-Swiss Switzerland. It's a very interesting period, the pre-medieval period in the Schweiz. And there is a whole bucket of folk tales over there that do not look or sound or feel anything like folk tales from anywhere for about 500 miles around. That interests me deeply. So that's something I'm going to continue to investigate as time makes itself possible. That said, most of the time we spend in that part of the world, we spend on trains. We have too many great train stories, including the time it rained buttermilk. But that was my first time over. My first time over. I was over initially to come and write a screenplay version of Dragonflight with Anne McCaffrey. I came over and we did that work. And then I said, fine, I've been interested in Switzerland for a long time now, so I will now take the boat down, take the train down to Wexford, and take the ferry over to France and take the train into Switzerland, and I will go and see Switzerland, which I've been wanting to see for a long time. Fine. So that went well enough, and there was a bit of an accident along the way. I would need to look much more closely at my train schedule to figure out where I picked up the damn buttermilk. But in any case, it got into my luggage in the overseat rack that we all know from European trains. And at some point or another, the buttermilk was breached in a, good sort of old-fashioned European train compartment with other people in it. And none of us could actually see the buttermilk raining on me, but it was happening. And the place was beginning to smell like, let's say, the run-up to an interesting course in cheese making. Okay. And, I was very glad when the train finally we'd been through France, and it was warm in France, and the buttermilk was warm, and we were all warm, and everybody everyone had sort of departed the cabin except me at that point. It's like it was my buttermilk, it was my problem. finally, we fetched up in Zurich, and I discovered one of the most wonderful things about any world's train network that you need to know. That when you land in a major Swiss railway station, you can go and have a shower. More to the point, you could have a bath if you wanted it, but the most important thing right then was the shower. So you roll up to the all right, there's the public toilet, which anybody can get in for free. And then there's the fancy toilet, which is, run by a company. And they say, fine, give us €1, and as we would say now, or it was 2 Swiss francs then. Give us 2 francs, and cleanliness is yours. You can have as much hot water as you want to spill on your head. Now I was later to find that Switzerland had better to offer than that, but that's a little further down the story. So I went in there, and dear God, was there ever a woman who was happier not to smell like buttermilk in her life? But this is worth knowing that in many major European train stations, look around a little bit. If you need to freshen up before you move on, many of them have pay a little extra, go in, have a shower, dry your hair. It's all there for you. And it's quite magical. So having escaped from there, other travels later took us to historical hot water. This gets even better now. There are places in Switzerland where the Romans were, where they tunneled through the living rock to get at the hot water. And one of them in particular is a little spa town up in the mountains, not too far from Geneva, called Leukerbad. Now, Leukerbad, you come out in 2 ways. You take the train from Geneva to Leuk, which is at the bottom of the mountain. And you can then get up to Leuk one way by the bus. It's going to be Leukerbad by the bus, because the train does not go up there. Mm-hmm. Unlike the place that will be in the third part of the story, but we'll get there momentarily, the bit with the dead bodies. Anyway, so you get off the train in Leuk. It's about half an hour out of Geneva, and you unload your bags, and the nice man comes and helps you to throw them into the guts of the bus. And then you go up the mountain. I advise you strongly, if you are of a nervous, composition at all, you really don't want to do this when it's snowing, when the road might be a bit wet and the back end of the bus might fishtail a little bit. Or if you have any trouble looking way, 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 way down the mountain as it comes around the outsides of curves that look down towards the railhead where you just embarked. If you have a problem with that, just cover your eyes, it'll go away. And then finally, out you come in the middle of Leukerbad. And they have a website. You should just go there and look at the pretty pictures. It's www.leukerbad.ch. And you will see many pictures of steaming hot water with very happy people sitting in it. I am here to tell you it is all true. Every bit of it is true. Ooh. And this place, it's not well known. Mostly German-speaking people go there, which got me into trouble with some of the PR people in that neighborhood, because they have, among other beautiful things there, they have, first of all, a big public bath sequence, bath in the sense of, pools, swimming pools, with Europe's biggest hot water park. And that's a reason just to go by itself. But also, they have a fancy baths up the top of the town, further up the hill, the name of which is eluding me at the moment. But it is a spectacular resource. And in that resource, they have something called a Roman Irish bath. Now, at that point, I pulled up short. I went, Irish how exactly? because frankly, though they are famous rightly for many other wonderful things, the Irish are not famous for bath culture. Once upon a time, 1,000 years or so ago, it was a thing. We didn't have, like hot springs coming up out of the ground the way you might have in Cologne or Ligerbad. But people did really get into the concept that, there should be bathhouses where you could go and, get very clean. Fine. So I went up to visit the Roman Irish bath, and it's spectacular. It's a wonderful, wonderful facility. You go through about 10 different stages of hot and cold and cooler and very steamy water. It's fabulous. And I went and did all this and came away, extraordinarily astonished and very clean. And then I went down to see the nice PR lady. I said, you need to know, I said, that there's nothing actually Irish about this bath. And she said, wait, what? Now I'm translating into American English as opposed to, Swiss English, which is much politer. She sort of looked at me and she said, bitte? I went, yeah, right. So here's the story. The Irish guy who sold you on this myth, I'm really sorry. It is in fact a myth. He was trying to get people to come to Ireland and be soaked in hot water. We don't actually have a bathing tradition. I regret having to tell you this, especially since you've just built a 15 million franc, Irish Roman bath facility up the hill there. And it is absolutely fabulous, but there's nothing Irish about it. And the lady said, she took a long breath. She said, may I see your citations? Which is exactly the right thing to say. And I said, it's funny you should ask me for that. And I handed her a sheaf of printed PDFs because, look, you're dealing with the Swiss. They want documentation. And I said, here, you're just going to have to read these. I'm sorry. I'm desperately sorry to have to tell you this, but you may need to alter your PR just enough to sync with this. You think you can do that? Because I'm all about the Swiss people. They have had a difficult row to hoe over the past 8 to 10 centuries. And she said, I will take this and show it to the supervisory committee, and we will see what needs to be done about this. And God bless her, they actually went and they pulled their PR a little closer into alignment with what passes for reality on Earth. And that's as much as you can ask for. That whole town, leaving aside Irish people who swindled them into believing something that wasn't true, that whole town is just a farrago of beautiful hot water mineral pools. Some of them are medically oriented. Some of them are just for recreation. In one place, the hot water from the springs under the town is channeled under the main street of the town so that snow never lies there.
Oh,
because that would discommode the tourists. And it's a great town. You've got the skiing in the winter and the hot water as well. And people come there to hike and so forth in the summertime. But in the winter, when the snow comes down really hard, you get some of the most frustrated skiers on the planet because they can't go up the mountain until the helicopters come and drop explosives. It's quite magical. I was stuck up there writing a Spider-Man novel for 2 weeks because the helicopters could not come and drop bombs on the slopes. There are worse places to be. I envy Ursula the leopards and things. But there's much to be said about
very
being
uncomfortable.
There's much to be said of being trapped in a good drinking town in midwinter.
Yeah, you're talking about all these lovely baths. When I left when we left the Valley of Cats and got back to the nearest town, which has the highest airport in the world, as it turns out.
Ooh. Yeah.
So we all had terrible altitude sickness at the same time. I mean, we were taking lots of meds for it, which just make you twitchy. You have to pee a lot, and you get the soles of your feet and your lips tingle.
Yeah.
It's horrible stuff. And but finally, for the first time in a week, we saw a shower. And we had not been able to bathe at all because you have to boil all of the water, and you're staying with people, indigenous people who live up there. And we had asked, like they have no facilities like that. They're boiling all the water for drinking, and they have so little. Since there's no trees, pretty much you're burning yak dung to stay warm and to boil the water. So there's just not enough fuel to boil water so the tourists can take a bath or something. Yeah. And I got to the shower and was like, oh my God, suddenly I feel emotions again. And it was, 7 days of crime, particularly when you were sleeping in a room that is heated by a wood stove or by a yak dung burning stove with 6 other people it's a lot.
No, it's true. This is one of the minor joys of places like Leukerbad, though I look forward to doing this up in Cologne, which has one of the oldest spa facilities in Europe, named after I forget which emperor it is now. Anyway, where you walk into one of these beautiful places. The one I'm hottest to get to now is the one in Budapest, which has just been reorganized, just been refurbished. And you walk into one of these vast pools full of people of every possible shape and size. No one gives a damn. This is not beach culture. And you go and you stand under, there's no other word for it. It's a tame fire hose that emits a liter of hot water per second on your head, or on your shoulders, or that bit of your back that you could never really sort out. And then you step up out of that beautiful space, all of which has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you sit down and you have a drink, because a nice person will come and bring you wine or the non-alcoholic drink of your choice. And you sit there. And if you're in a great place, like if you're up in Leukerbad, up in the mountains, you look up the Alp, and you see snow and the moon. This was the best. One of the times I was up in Leukerbad, the time I was not doing the Spider-Man thing, I was doing some other damn thing I don't recall. Because you can go up there and hire a really nice apartment to write in for the equivalent of maybe a couple $100 for 2 weeks if you're in the right season. And the game for me would be to see how cheaply I could get over there. Mm-hmm. So it would be a combination of the trains and Ryanair and EasyJet. Also, there was a time when I was getting my hair cut in Basel regularly, and my record for getting over and back was $50. Damn. And the haircut. It was cheaper than it would have been in Dublin if I just it's like beat me, kick me, make me fly to Switzerland through duty free, thank you God, and bring cool Swiss booze back. But that's another story. So you'd be up in Leukerbad, and the main pool in the fancy spa, there's the indoor pool and there's the outdoor pool, which is an infinity pool. And you walk out through the plastic flaps into the infinity pool, and you're looking at snow-clad water. All right, water here, boom, like that, and then snow-clad mountains reach up in front of you. And I remember just being so fixed on the view one night that I just shook my head, and my head jingled. That was unusual. and I put my hands up, and I found that my hair had frozen. But I didn't notice that because the water up to my chin was 98 degrees Fahrenheit. It was like, who would notice that their hair froze? So I just ducked and came up again, and my hair went, oh, fine, I melted now. And then it froze some more. I did that like about 6 or 7 times. It was so much fun. And the moon is there, and the silence. And there are moments where you become actively grateful. You may suffer at home. There may be times when you're not sure when your next meal, where or when it's coming from. There may be times you're broke. A lot of times that you're broke as a freelancer. But those magic moments when things come together, that you have enough money to go to a place that you haven't been, to see the people there, to hear them talk, to sop up a little of their culture at whatever distance, and then to wind up in a pool in the mountains, looking at the moon and listening to your hair refreeze. Because you can hear it. You can hear it crackling as it refreezes. It is extraordinarily magical. And it makes your memories of those people you're with sink that much more deeply into your head. You take those places away with you. It can be as simple a thing as going to the grocery store. And for Peter and me both, this is one of our major sports when we're in a new country. Go immediately to grocery and see what is cool there. And you find out, for example, that you may think Switzerland is, for example, a rich country, but then you see what meat costs there. And you understand suddenly, or you begin to understand, why a lot of their culture is about meat as seasoning and everything else as what supports that, why vegetarian culture is so strong there, why the interest in natural food is as strong there as it is. One of the best things in Zurich is a place called Hiltel Veggie. It is the world's oldest continually operating vegetarian restaurant.
I've got to check that out.
It is fabulous. They do a la carte, so you can just order things in on the plate in the normal way, or they have the world's best vegetarian buffets. And you go there. One side of it is European vegetarian. So it's everything, and one side of it is fenced off as vegan. So you're quite clear what you're getting. The other side is Asian and Indian. They were one of the first restaurants to bring Asian and Indian food to Central Europe. And my God, what they have is terrific. They also have one of the city's best wine cellars because they're not stupid. They lure the meat eaters in for the wine, and then they keep them when they can't stay away from the smell of the food because it is so good. It's a magical place, and there's no other way you could learn about this stuff except to stumble in there. Hiltel, HILTL.ch on the web, has a cooking school where they will teach you to do some of the best vegetarian cooking you can imagine. They will sell you, terrific vegan drink. The downstairs bar, it jumps. It's really terrific. They have a vegetarian club upstairs. You can go clubbing and have, vegan food while you're up there. It's fab.
It's definitely jumped up on my list as a lifelong vegetarian.
Go. No, investigate the website. They're spreading out a little bit into the city right now. But gosh, must not miss them. It's a lot of people think Zurich is a boring place. No, it's a clubbing town if you know where to go. but again, you find these things and you'll never find them unless you go there. And the German Swiss Austrian thing in particular, I'm looking forward to getting up into Scandinavia more and down into the Iberian Peninsula, because I am like tapas girl. Give me the tapas. But I want to go there to where you can actually have those things, as they grew in their native culture, not as sort of Irish tapas, which we do have. People put little blackboards out on the sidewalk and say Irish tapas, and it's like, okay, I get it. Pass.
I would say if you want to go clubbing, Berlin is amazing. I say this as someone who once found themselves at a rave in the basement of a hotel at a furry convention in Berlin. And there's moments, you're talking about moments of gratitude, and I do have those occasionally. More often, though, I have moments of, I have made choices in my life that led me to this point. And I do not know quite where they were, that I am now kneeling on the floor in the middle of a German club with oomph, oomph, oomph music going on, drinking Cuba Libres out of a bucket with a fursuiter who needs a bendy straw that my husband is trying to poke through the snout so that the person in the suit can get to the bendy straw, and so we can drink these Cuba Libres out of a bucket. And I'm like, I'm a children's book author. And yet,
oh my God,
here I am. It's a thing that has happened to me. Huh.
That's okay. I generally speaking, I haven't had anything quite that extraordinary occur. And maybe it's just that
you gotta go to more furry conventions, Diane.
Well, I've been to furry conventions. I've been guest of honor at furry conventions. Plainly not in the right places, but well,
no, I recommend it highly.
That's wrong to say. I wear my furry hood with pride in insofar as someone who's written frequently about animals, and there's that. I still recall, though, maybe I just tend toward the weirder end of things. At one of those wine festivals in Freiburg, and you must imagine now, the first weekend of July in every year, this beautiful Mediterranean town, which somehow still manages to be in Germany. There's no describing Freiburg to people who haven't been there except in general terms. You're dealing with a city, it was, a walled city in its time, yet it has this extraordinarily Mediterranean vibe. And this is assisted in its way by the presence in all over the center city and, spreading out into the beginnings of the suburbs of what are called bäche. These are brooks. They come down from the ancient medieval water source of the city up in the hill above town. And the entire city is full of the sound of running water as it comes down these little paved brooks, down cobbled streets and not so cobbled streets. The Bäche have right of way. And you're in an extraordinary place when you pass by a little bar, and there's a couple guys out there. Neither of them has seen the young side of 70 for a long time. And they've got their pants legs rolled up, and they've got their feet in the Bäche, and they're sitting, with a table next to them drinking beer. And this is one of the definitions, you say to yourself, this is one of the definitions of paradise. These guys are sitting on a perfect summer day. The water is running down and cooling their feet. They're having a chat about something that happened God knows when. They've got cold beer, and inside that door there, that beautiful carved door, is someone who will come out in a moment, and the minute they want more beer, will bring it to them. you've died and gone to heaven. I mean, this is it. You go down further into the town, and there are kids playing in the Beckham. There are fully grown adults who, at other times, and some of them are at this very moment in 3-piece suits with their pants rolled up, with their feet in the Beckham, drinking and chatting. It's their lunch hour. They can do what they damn well please on their lunch hour. This is Europe. No one will look askance at you if you've had a glass of wine over your lunch and you come back in and you're still working normally. Fine, no one cares where you had your feet. And the whole town is like that in the summer. Then comes the wine festival, and this beautiful Gothic cathedral, one of the most extraordinary pieces of Gothic art in Europe, beautifully built in red sandstone. It's like gingerbread with all the holes poked in it.
You've been telling Swiss stories.
I am telling Swiss stories.
Have some ether.
Oh, he's brought me kirsch. Excuse me. Cheers, baby. Look, it's got little, like, cherries in it. I have to get this where it will actually register correctly on the camera. Swiss schnapps, if we can demean it with the name, is extraordinary stuff. And much of Europe, in the wake of World War I, decided that it was folly to waste good bread-making grain on booze. So they outlawed brewing or distilling from grain. Well, Switzerland, Austria, Germany said, yeah, watch, hold our schnapps. And they began distilling from fruit. And as a result, you go in particular Switzerland, but Austria is real close behind them. They are distilling still from fruits that you wouldn't expect. Rowan berries, really? Yes. But also cherries, plums, apricots, the Victoria plum, 50 kinds of fruit. Anyway, he brought me that. So anyway,
I will say, speaking of schnapps in Europe, I love Iceland. Iceland is an amazing place. I would go to Iceland any number of times.
Absolutely.
Brennivin?
I fear their schnapps are perhaps not on par with the rest of the nation in desirability. They use lichen in them, and you get a bottle of lichen schnapps, and it tastes like eating silage that will mess you up. But it's one of those nice bottles to have in the liquor cabinet, because when you have gotten desperate enough to get down to the lichen schnapps, you know that it is time to either go to the liquor store, to go to bed, or perhaps just to go to AA. I don't know which, but
you have it there to give the guest who won't leave.
Yes, that is also a valid.
Let us give you some of the most fabulous stuff from our collection, you say, and you are desperately, desperately trying not to reveal what you actually think of this stuff. Oh God.
Yeah, there's a couple others. They do like Berkir and one called Bjork, and it tastes like IKEA furniture. That's all I can tell you. Not like IKEA furniture actually tastes, because I have never gnawed on IKEA furniture, but it tastes like white pine boards and minimalist decor.
And benches.
Yes, and it's not that it's bad, but it is an experience.
Oh God. I will slide up the hill briefly from Freiburg to something I'm reminded of, Cuckoo Clock Hill.
And just a note, we've got about 5 minutes left, so
okay, noting that.
Wrap up soon.
Anybody else have something they want to unburden themselves before I get moving here?
The worst bathroom I've ever been in my life. Well, there's two. There's the one in the Valley of Cats where they've tried to be really nice. So they had dug the trench, they had put the boards over it, and there was plastic sheeting to keep the wind out. And the problem was it was clear plastic sheeting. so privacy was not really a thing, and you would go out grimly in pairs because they have feral mastiffs and snow leopards who will eat you, and also a yak might step on you.
That would ruin the holiday effect.
And I don't know any polite way to say this. Shitting at high altitude is an experience you should probably try to miss if you can, because you are short of breath, you have no energy, and every muscle group in your body is exhausted, including many of the critical ones for things you do not think about much while you are balancing on two boards over a trench. And my husband at one point came out and was like, if I die while crapping in there, tell them a snow leopard got me. Just have my obituary be better than died while crapping at 15,000 feet. I beg of you.
Okay, I will match your altitude, but not the toilet problem. Ever so briefly, one of the great experiences of life, if you can get up there, is to do the Jungfrau. It is in the middle of Switzerland. What you do is you do 3 trains. Tolkien did this train quite early on, almost immediately after it opened. You essentially take a train from the valley floor near Interlaken up to a middle area. You take another train. Actually, the middle area, excuse me, I'm doing it a disservice. It is the train station mentioned in the Eiger Sanction. And then you take the train up inside the mountain. They dug again through the stone to be able to take you up to the very top of the Jungfrau Massif. There are 3 mountains there, the Maiden, the Monk, and the Ogre. They have now a spectacular and beautiful astronomical observatory up there. And the former wire grating over which you had to walk to look down on the glacier that flows from those 3 mountains has been replaced by armor glass. It's still not good. A lot of people still can't walk on it. Bit of a problem. But we went up there with a friend. One of those people, type A people who's bustling all the time. Bustle, 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 bustle. He was fine on the first train. He was fine on the second train. He was fine on the third train. And then he got up to 14K. And for the first time in living memory, our friend stopped bustling because the altitude had words with him. He was actually forced to sit down and behave like a human being. Just hold still. Here, have a glass of wine. You'll get 3 times the value off it, the altitude you're at. And we went out and looked at the triple glacier, the Place de la Concorde, as they call it. And as we were out there watching, the Swiss Air Force flew by underneath us and waggled their wings.
Mm-hmm.
To say, we see you seeing us. Do you see us? And, you know, there's nothing to add to that. You turn around and you go back in and you get a glass of wine. Sometimes your work lets you go extraordinary places. That is
I will say, for altitude, one of the things that amazed me about Tibet is over a certain altitude, you know how most hotels have the little, you know, the little tea set. There's like a little thing with a, they had oxygen masks and a little thing by the bed that's like, yeah, they sold oxygen bottles in the equivalent of the 7-Eleven. It was like you had concierge oxygen service if you needed it, because, and that was at 12,000 feet. Once you got up to 16, no one builds luxury hotels. There's like one monastery that's Everest Base Camp, and it is, frankly, the most uncomfortable night I've ever spent in my life, because if you are of a certain generous build, let us say, with vast tracts of land, yeah, the weight of your own boobs keeps you from being able to breathe on your back at all, partly on your sides. So you're getting like, you're sort of breathing like, it is not an enjoyable experience.
I hear you. You know, we're not going to see that in Doctor Strange either.
Probably not. Yeah, they left off a lot.
Sudden travel between different altitudes can be very intense.
Yep.
We crossed one pass that was 18,000, and none of us who were not from the area could even get out of the truck. We were just sitting there going, I'm dying. There is no air in this air. Please drive down. Get me to.
That's a brilliant way to put it, frankly.
There's no air in this air.
Yeah.
I'm happy to stop around 8 to 10. And around 10, I began to be uncomfortable, and I don't even have vast tracts of land. And, I was just aware that there was less air in the air than usual, as you say.
Yeah, it's one of those experiences I'm glad I did, but I am not eager to repeat.
No.
Yeah.
How are we for time?
I think we are at time. And I am going to close so that people can go do other activities if they would like. And so that, Diane, you can rest. I know it is late where you are.
Well, it's only 11.
Yeah.
Also,
later here than for most other people, I
he
think.
poured me this shit. I have to drink it now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, how I suffer.
I'll go pour some tequila in solidarity.
Please, ma'am. We will suffer for our art. What's the phrase? I suffered for my art, and now it's your turn. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, so anyone is welcome to stick around and chat if you'd like. But yeah, thank you so much for all of your wonderful travel stories. It's always
our
good to hear.
Happy to complain about bathrooms to an audience.
Yay.
All right. Have a good evening, all.
You too.
I think I will see most of you tomorrow at 5.
Okay.
5 my time.
Sounds good. We will catch you later.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, guys.